Production underwriting for Ruckus has been made possible in part by the generous contributions from Fred and Lou Hartwig and from viewers like you. Thank you.
Welcome to Ruckus, our weekly food for thought fight over the news of the day and the trends of the times. I'm Mike Shannon, joined by the Ruckettes. Kansas City Star editorial writer Yael Abou-Hakka, Gwen Grant, president and CEO of the Kansas City Urban League, media and communications consultant Mary O'Halloran, and joining us this week, Jeff Rowe, head of Kansas City-based, nationally known Axiom Strategies, a political and business consulting firm. Well, it's talked about so much on Ruckus and elsewhere that you might think the judgment of the mayor's KCI advisory group is the final word, but it certainly is not. Even though the vast majority of members voted to abolish the current structures and build a new one-terminal airport, the final decision rests with Kansas City, Missouri voters. When or if they will vote is not yet known. Mayor James created the advisory group. Yael, does he now look at his creation and say, this is good?
Yes, he does. I mean, bottom line, the mayor also had a task force that looked into local police control, and it disappointed him. So this one got it right as far as the mayor's concerned, because he has been pushing for improvements at KCI. Whether that's going to be a single terminal, we don't know. And as I said all along, contrary to the lie you told the Star last week, I have been for major improvements.
Let's just correct. No, let's just straighten this out. What I said when that whole idea first began of a $1.2 billion new airport that would replace the existing one, everybody on the panel said no, that was not a good idea. And that was what I was referring to.
Okay, well then, since we've had like 400 discussions since then, I made it very clear that I'm in favor of improving KCI, especially since my son's been stuck out there the last 2 days with nothing to do when they keep canceling flights. Now, back to the topic of whether this is really important. Well, yes, it is, because you have the citizens group, a citizens group that, you know, more or less overwhelmingly said, yeah, we want to move ahead toward making these improvements. So the next thing is, of course, the airline. I was just in a meeting the other day when the mayor was talking about this with some of his committee chairs. Well, of course, they're now waiting for the airlines to get together with the city staff, aviation staff, my favorite, Mark Van Lowe, aviation director, and get something worked out in the future. What might they finance? What might they go for? Bottom line, this gives cover, to a degree, to the airlines to say, well, yes, we like this idea. We'll help go this far. And that would help it with voters. Now, to your question that you were going to ask me in just a second, yes, voters are still going to be very troubled by this.
Yeah. Well, Congressman Sam Graves, the congressman in whose district the airport is located, says there are still serious questions about whether to build a new airport. Do you know him by any chance?
I've met him a few times. Well, I think the advisory council did a great job, frankly. Going into this, the aviation department said that the federal money was guaranteed. The airlines were for it. We had to do it for EPA restrictions. There'd be more flights, and it was all we were going to sit around and sing Kumbaya. Now we know there will be less flights. There's no federal money. The EPA is just fine the way we are, and you know we're not going to build this just for a new sub shop around the corner. And so I think it's a very enlightening process. But the problem really is for the administration. Only about 20% of the people have ever flown out of KCI, and they like it. 80% of the people don't, because they've never flown, don't care what goes on there. They want basic services for the community. So if we're going to spend $1 billion, do it on something that all the customers of Kansas City can use.
Jeff, does Graves' decision play a major role in whether anything changes at KCI? He has influence, no doubt, with how much federal money will get this way.
You just said we're not getting federal money.
You can't do it.
Well, there you go.
It's very critical for him. He is one of the ranking Republicans in Washington on the Transportation Department. You can't do it over the objections of the local Congress.
But if we're not getting federal money, what does it matter?
Before we sing Kumbaya, although I think it'd be fun to sing Kumbaya with you here on the set, you know, one of the big questions in the early going was, oh my gosh, security. Security, this is frightening. The federal government, in all likelihood, is going to come in here and say the main reason why you got to look like Denver and every other place that looks as cookie cutter airports is for security. And guess what? I mean, that was really, I think, in terms of general public looking at this question, the federal government came in and said, no, we actually think in some cases the current security configuration is just fine or maybe better. And I think that is a big part
Gwen,
of the
despite
deal.
this advisory group's findings, a lot of people still don't like the idea of changing KCI, and there will be a lot of opposition mobilized, don't you think, in the event there is an election?
I think the Save the KCI people will probably mobilize, if during an election and raise a lot of issues, just as Jeff stated about, why are we spending $1 billion on an airport when we need all these things? Then you have the cloud of Van Lowe hanging over the whole thing because, he came out with all of this, our hair is on fire here, we got to do this, and then really it's not. And so that makes a strong case for let's make some upgrades at the airport, let's modernize the airport, but do we need to tear it down and build a whole new one? And I don't think they've made that case still. I think a new airport, upgrades, conveniences, security, all can be addressed, but do we have to build a $1 billion airport to get there?
And Mike, don't forget, just real quickly, the election probably 2 years away. So a lot can change. Pro or con.
And there's a city election
Absolutely.
next
In between.
year,
Absolutely.
mayor or city
Yeah.
council,
And the cloud of Van
so
Lowe.
things could change. All right. Every political writer at the Kansas City Star is busily bashing Kansas Republicans for cutting taxes and warning Missouri lawmakers not to take that same path to perdition. Nonetheless, the GOP-dominated legislature overrode Governor Jay Nixon's veto. As a result, Show Me State residents may soon join Kansans in that painful act of paying lower taxes. Missouri GOP leaders claim the Sunflower State's tax policies are attractive to business that otherwise would move to or stay in Missouri. So what effect, Gwen, does this defeat do to Governor Nixon, who is rumored to be interested in political opportunities far beyond Jefferson City?
Well, I don't think it has any real negative effect on his political aspirations within the Democratic Party. I mean, most Democrats agree that with the governor's veto, with the exception of the one traitor who sold out for his own personal political gain, I think the Democratic Party supports the governor. However, I think within the party there are some concerns because many more liberal Democrats view Nixon as a Republican in disguise. They think he shows up and governs more like a Republican than a Democrat, and that could hurt him on a national level if he were to pursue something other than, whatever that next step would be.
Jeff, do you view Nixon as a Republican in disguise?
In the first term, I did. The only people, the people that dislike Nixon more than Republicans are Democrats. He's in a Cold War with Claire McCaskill. Under his leadership, he has presided over the epic losses in the state legislature. Democrats lost a congressional seat. He has done nothing to help any of his party
That was the
building.
point I was going to make. And I think that's another thing that hurt him. He had an opportunity to use some political capital and some of his war chest to try to get more seats in the legislature, and he did nothing to benefit the party when he could have.
He's been overridden 13 times, the most of almost any governor in Missouri history. Each and every time had a Democrat that joined the Republican majority to override. He has awful relationships, and for such a sports aficionado, he doesn't understand there's no I in team.
Let's take a look at some of the provisions of the tax bill, and then, Mary, you can tell us why they're so bad.
Thank you.
We'll put them on the screen. Tax cuts would bring down the top individual rate by 0.5% from 6 to 5.5. Phase in a 25% deduction for business income reported on personal tax returns. These cuts won't kick in until at least 2017. Revenues must be at least $150 million more over the high point of the last 3 years for incremental cuts to occur. Is that so bad?
Who could object? Well, every single Democrat did, except the traitor from St. Louis. Thank you, Glenn.
Traitor's a little strong, isn't it?
Oh, no, not at all.
He
This
voted
is a
for
guy
it,
who
then
never
he sold out
campaigned
and voted against it.
for tax cuts
Yeah,
ever.
that's a traitor.
Well, Rex Singfield is a powerful man. I mean, what this indicates is what a good lobbyist Woody Kozad is, and what a clever manager of Rex Singfield's funds he is. The guy who manages the Senate Majority Leader, name escaping me right now, received $20,000 from Rex
Well, what
Sinfield
about
in
these
the last
provisions
cycle.
we outlined on the
Oh, yeah,
screen?
the
Well, you
question.
can't
Answer the question.
Just Yale, go to sleep for a while. Here's the problem with the
Like
with
the audience.
Here's what the problem is with the taxes. We have a state of Kansas who's experimented now with cutting our way to prosperity. And the Star has been really good at outlining the consequences, including the lowering of our credit rating by Moody's, who said the reason why the bonds in Kansas are less
We did
creditworthy
Kansas
now.
last week.
Well, it's the same stuff,
Okay.
Mike. It's
Yale,
the same stuff
you
across
studied
the
this
nation.
pretty carefully. What's your assessment? Are these Missouri cuts outrageous as you think the Kansas ones are?
No, they are not as outrageous. What they do portend, as we've found in Kansas, is that you'll have lower revenues. Now, Republicans and supporters, I think, are very upfront about saying, well, yeah, we want to have lower revenues. We're trying to reduce somehow the size of government. But, you know, I guess, of course, to people who like to spend money on government services, including me, you would then think, all right, well, what services might we cut back? And will people put up with that? And again, Republicans say, well, yeah, they will put up with it. And the contention will be, at some point, the service will be cut enough that
Yeah,
people
you're
will not
missing-
like
You're
that.
missing the number one problem with it, and that is the vast majority of the money goes to the people at the top, and the
Well,
least amount goes to the people.
This
It's
is-
a regressive.
Jeff, as we
really regressive.
Jeff, as we wrap this up, are you comfortable with these tax breaks in Missouri, these changes in the income tax rates, first ones in 90 years?
Yeah, it's the first time in 90 years. You know, it is a very modest cut. I mean, it's 0.5% in 8 years. If everything happened, if you stand on your head, live in a cul-de-sac, or left-handed and red hair, you may get a tax cut in 2020. I mean, it's just a modest tax cut. To hear the yelps and
So it's
screams
a
of
sham by the
calamity.
Republican Party,
It's
right,
not-
Jeff?
it's-
Okay.
it's not-
Okay. About the only political race stirring much regional interest is the August Republican senatorial primary in Kansas between longtime incumbent Pat Roberts and Tea Party challenger Dr. Milton Wolfe. Wolfe's main argument seems to be that Roberts is part of the Washington establishment and has lost touch with voters back home. In fact, Wolfe challenges the idea that Roberts is even a legal resident of Kansas. And that challenge was taken to something called the State Objections Board. The members are Secretary of State Chris Kobach, Lieutenant Governor Jeff Collier, and Attorney General Derek Schmidt. All are Republicans and all support Roberts. As a student of politics, Jeff, did you have any problem forecasting the outcome of the Objections Board meeting?
Seemed pretty predictable, but it wasn't really ever a legal question. This is a political question, and I ran the campaign against Dick Lugar with Richard Murdoch and defeated him. He had a significant residency problem. Pat Roberts didn't have a significant problem, doesn't have one, and this race is really turned on. Typically, it's a referendum on the incumbent. But we've heard very little, in fact, so little that this is the first news about Pat Roberts' record. What we hear all the time about is Milton Wolfe's record. And that's why, now I do work for Pat Roberts, full disclosure. But there's a lot that he has to do. Pat Roberts is not vulnerable. It's not because of residency. It's not because of any of the other things they'll throw against him. It's because he's a tested, trusted conservative and has been for decades.
Well, doesn't an effort like this to try to claim that Roberts is not a legal resident, doesn't that vitiate the whole Wolfe campaign, make it seem less than important, less than significant?
They should probably be fighting on different issues.
I mean, who would think that you're going to say a sitting U.S. senator is not really a resident of the state, wasting their time, it would seem to me, on an issue that most people would think was of no consequence, inappropriate.
The last anybody paid attention to this campaign, it was when they were looking at Milton Wolfe's Facebook. So
Yeah.
they needed to change the conversation.
I want to ask you, as an analyst and not an advocate,
Okay.
how are the chances for Republicans to take control of the U.S. Senate and keep control of the House in 2014?
The heartbeat of a party is their generic ballot. And a generic ballot in 1994, the Democrats typically have a 5 to 7 point generic advantage. More people consider themselves to be Democrats than Republicans. It's typical. In 1994, the best year ever for Republicans, it was a +1 Republican. In 2010, the second best year in our history, it was a +1 generic ballot Republican. Right now, as we sit here today, it's a +5. We have never seen numbers like this. We've never seen a Democrat president in this shape. It could really, truly be historic. We will grow in the House. the Senate is way in the crosshairs. I think it's better than 50% chance. We get to.
If Republicans control both houses, it will be a very uncomfortable final 2 years for President Obama, will it not?
It will. It will stop the agenda, and it will be gridlock and waiting for next presidential.
One more question for you, and then we'll get other people involved in this conversation. I saw an article on Tony's Kansas City that Yale is a major subscriber of. I saw an article saying that you had indicated in a presentation recently that you were fairly confident that Hillary Clinton would not actually run for president.
So I would not be the first to be alerted of that. I'm probably joined by other people on the stage to be some of the last to know. But I don't believe she does run. It's a lateral move for her. She's one of the most. She's one of the most powerful women in the world. She's one of the most powerful women in the world today.
Let's hear what he says.
70 years old.
I got it.
She'll be 69 years old. She's about ready to have a grandchild. And I think the real reason is she's going to have to move back in with Bill Clinton if it happens.
Oh, come on.
Yale, you want to weigh in on any of this?
Yeah, oh my God, I'm going to agree with Jeff Rowe. I think there's a very high likelihood that she doesn't run. And I'm in the camp that would like, of course, I've said this before, I'd love to see somebody other than a Clinton and a Bush run for president in this country.
Yeah. What about Sam Brownback in the gubernatorial race in Kansas?
He will win right now. This is catnip for reporters, seeing him in trouble. And this will last until about 4th of July. Advertising will start, and this will be a 15-point race.
All right, Mary, got about a minute.
Question being.
Well, question
is
being, would you
Hillary
have
gonna
any
run?
response to any of this?
Nobody can tell in the end. What did you say? I'm sorry.
I said the question is, do you have a response about any of this which has been discussed?
Well, of course I do. The question of who runs for president of the United States is very significant, and whether Hillary runs depends upon the response that she gets preliminarily as she goes around the country giving speeches, which she's doing right now, and whether she can get the Obama geniuses to move into her camp. And you know the people I'm talking about, the people that took your candidate Romney for a ride because they're technically so superior in terms of how to micromanage the get out the vote for a presidential campaign. And secondly, her own sense of whether or not the women's vote in this country, whether women really do believe that it's possible to have the first woman president.
Okay, if she does run at age 69, that'd just be the same age Ronald Reagan was when he ran.
And we know how great he was.
Was great. He was the greatest modern American president. If controversy gives an Uber lift to your spirits, then you're going to be overjoyed by the arrival of Uber and Lyft in Kansas City. Simply put, Uber and Lyft are ride-sharing services relying on smartphone apps to attract passengers. They don't charge fares exactly as I understand it, but instead calculate suggested donations. The city wants to bring the newcomers under rules and regulations that govern taxis. The companies and Star columnist Steve Rose disagree. Steve believes they should be regulated, but not like cabs. So if the regulation issue is resolved, Rose predicts Uber and Lyft will bring down prices, bring healthy competition, and better service to Kansas City. Does that all sound logical to you, Mary?
Well, it could happen. It'll probably depend on the courts in the end. But I just love this issue. I think it's so much fun. I mean, don't you? Yeah. What's happening in the city? Everybody's talking about Lyft because there's not a lot of other news right now. We're kind of pre-politics. And, have you seen a Lyft? Where are they? How do you get them? And if you get in the back seat of a Lyft and they don't have insurance, does your insurance pay? I think just in terms of the policy that you asked about, the mayor is absolutely right on target. The mayor of a city must provide for the public safety. And you cannot just go out and ask people, for money and I'll take you where you want to go. You can't sell hamburgers out of your kitchen either. I mean, we do have basic public safety rules. However, this is person-to-person commerce is going to be the wave of the future. And so the regulatory people have got to get with this, and I think they will. But, these kids, I'm calling them kids because a lot of them are, came into town, and as Keith Krastowski put it, I thought it was a great line.
He's Kansas City Star writer.
Kansas City Star's business editor the business models are inherently disruptive. They are disrupting things, and I like it.
Just before you talk, I want to read a quote from Bill George, the guy who runs
The taxi
Yellow
man.
Cab.
Yeah.
Lyft is like selling liquor out of a minivan on the street or serving meals from a food truck without health inspection.
Well,
Well,
that
you
was my
know,
point.
when you have a monopoly, then when you hold the monopoly on taxi cabs in this city, that would be a statement that you make. I think, Mary, you know, I agree with you that the mayor has to look out for the safety, but the mayor also wants us to be the most entrepreneurial city in the country, and I would think
True.
that yes, you have to have some regulatory process, but
think so.
apply some entrepreneurial thinking to that rather than doubling down on the ordinance
Do you have the
and digging
feeling
your
that-
heels into something
that they're
where
being a little
change.
tough on
I
these-
think they're being.
Are they?
What I think is. It's like I'm drawing a line in the sand, and how are we going to get over this to get to that middle ground
you're
where
sp-
we
take a look
we
at insurance,
invite,
though, Gwen.
we invite
Well,
innovation.
let's just take the issue of insurance. When they say we're looking at insurance solutions, that's not good. You actually have to go get insurance.
Well, maybe they should have. Maybe he should appoint a task force to look
No, not a
at
task
more
force.
proactive entrepreneurial regulatory practices
Jeff,
from the city.
Jeff, if you ever give your chauffeur a day off, would you consider calling
There you
or using your
I use-
smartphone to get a ride with Lyft?
I use Uber all over the country, actually.
Yeah, do you really?
I really do. It's a great service. It's a great business model. It's innovative. It's going to be here to stay. But ride sharing is a little different. I believe that needs to. I'm all for competition. I believe it needs to be a level playing field. Actually, I like the analogy. If you're just going to bring a hot dog stand into the city, you probably need to accept that there's going to be some health regulations, get a license, pay your fees, and participate. And once they do that, then I'm all for competition. But if they're not doing that, I think there's a lot of questions about it. And it's not a ride sharing program. I mean, they're not saying, "Hey, I'm going to go to
Right.
Westport tonight." Are you? No,
Right.
it's not that.
There's no barter.
I actually tried it. I looked it up. I wanted to get picked up after a UFC fight or MMA fight across the river, and I looked and there was a black Ford Explorer that was going to come pick me up. And it was going to take him 38 minutes to get there. That's not ride share.
You're pretty close to what's going on at City Hall. What do you think is going to
Yeah,
happen?
well, I mean, behind the scenes, Uber was working with the city saying, okay, we'd like to do this, but we'd like to change this law. And this is actually what the STAR supports is, well, let's change some of these things and make it a little
Right.
more innovative
Right.
and
That's what
help Uber get here and
Right.
Lyft for that matter. But then Lyft, which has had problems in other cities, and so has Uber. But so in other words, it's not a surprise they came to Kansas City. They could have been working with the city for months to try to change some of this stuff. Now, I know from the companies that, well, yeah, and Bill George and others fought back and said, oh, no, we got to keep all this stuff. That's why I would agree. James has stood up for the right of people. I would think he would also push the regulators, or push Troy
Exactly.
Schulte,
Exactly.
tell the regulators, let's work
do it
with this
right.
group and
Work
try to
it
be
out.
innovative.
Right.
All right.
Right.
It is time now for the eagerly awaited roast and toast
That
segment.
we're gonna kill.
Whose very name explains its purpose. And we start on tonight's program with Mary.
Well, a toast to Jane Chu, the president and CEO of the Kauffman Center for the Performing Arts. She was confirmed, I think, the day before, not confirmed, but the U.S. Senate committee that handles appointments has voted almost unanimously for her to become the new head of the National Foundation for the Arts. What an honor for her and for our city and for arts in Kansas City. It's just a great thing. I hate to lose her. I mean, that Kauffman Center is very important to me. Here's what the NFA says in its opening, or the NEA, the National Endowment for the Arts. Artworks are at the center of everything we do. The fact that art is work for the artists and art professionals who make up the field. She's a great manager, and Godspeed.
Well, I guess I have to toast Missouri General Assembly, which decided that it would like to give you the chance to raise your sales tax for roads and transportation. This is just barely hours after passing this, I believe I'm quoting Jeff Roche correctly here, a sham of a tax break that may or may not give anybody tax breaks. But no, it really could cost the state. The tax cut will cost the state hundreds of millions, but you'll be able to give that money back. And it's just so ridiculous and hypocritical for the Republicans, in my opinion.
My roast is going to be wildly popular on this set. I'm going to roast the administration and their hashtag diplomacy. I believe it was beneath the White House to use a prop and what looked to be a juvenile effort. If they want to take a stand on an issue that's important in the world, then they do it strong, with conviction and force, and not with a piece of paper and a hashtag on it.
I'm going to toast the community guardians who were celebrated last evening at the Ad Hoc Group Against Crime Community Guardians event, especially my friend and colleague Greg Graves and his lovely wife Deanna. Greg was amongst the honorees, and Greg is also a huge fan of Ruckus. And so congratulations to Greg Graves and his wife Deanna for the honor last night. Leo Morton, Stacey Daniels, Henry Block, and I think that's it. So great job, community guardians.
And finally, a rare self-inflicted roast to myself for last week's misspelling of Wyandotte County Commissioner Ann Murguia's last name. It's Murguia, not Murgia. I have no excuse except to say I'm accustomed to spelling easy names like Abuhaka and Marakian. As someone whose last name is often misspelled, no, it's not Shannon, and it's not Irish, I'm appalled at my failure. At least I spelled Ann correctly. There's no E. Or is there? And that's Ruckus for this week. Back next Thursday evening at 7:30. Now on behalf of the Ruckettes and the crew, Mike Shannon saying thanks for watching and good night.